Alright everyone, so I just finished my first long farming session for the Awakened Lila event, and I wanted to share with you guys all the important information as well as the team that I used to farm so that you guys can determine for yourself whether it's going to be worth farming for you or not. And I'll just tell you guys at a glance here, this is a very good event to farm. Definitely the best one that we've had in the game, but it's really the best for one thing in specific, and that is the amount of gold per hour that you're able to get out of it. The disadvantage to this farming method is it eats a lot of stamina potions. I'm talking about an insane amount, definitely quite a bit more than book farming, and the efficiency in terms of the amount of gold per hour is much higher than book farming, but the amount of gold per stamina potion is actually a tiny bit less, not a whole lot, and I'll break down all these numbers and details for you guys throughout the video. So let me break down my first overnight, or I guess you could say AFK farming session here, and to my surprise I had almost 40 stamina potions before I left, knowing that I would come back in under 6 hours, and I was actually back in even less than that. In less than 5 hours I had burned through almost 40 stamina potions, and I needed to determine exactly how long my auto repeat was going. So what I did was I actually saw that when it finished the auto farm I had 6 stamina left over. I was gone for a total of 4 hours and 45 minutes, and then I actually closed out of this window here to see how much stamina had regenerated naturally, and it looks like the auto repeat had only ended about 20 minutes before I actually got back, because I had about 16 stamina. So of course stamina regenerating at 2 every minute. I had regenerated 10 stamina since my auto stopped. That's 20 minutes right there. So that means out of the 4 hours and 45 minutes that I was gone, about 4.5 hours of it was spent continuously farming. And you guys can see the numbers here. I got in 181 runs in 4 hours and 30 minutes, and that works out to just a little bit over 40 runs per hour. That's important because this is definitely not going to be as fast as book farming. I know for my book farming runs, I could definitely push well over 50 runs per hour, but also keep in mind that book farming is only 7 stamina per run, whereas the Awakened Lila farming is 20 stamina per run. So in the same amount of time, if I were book farming, I would not have used nearly as many stamina potions as I did right here. Now the important part is actually breaking down the total amount of gold that I ended up getting, because you can see that there's a lot of different sources of gold. Obviously you have the raw gold amount right there, which is a bit over 2 million. Important note about this though is that I was using gold food, and that's actually really important, because if you end up going to the actual Awakened Lila event and you end up using skip tickets, which is totally fine, and I absolutely think that using skip tickets here is going to be worthwhile, you will not be able to end up using your gold food though. The skip tickets unfortunately don't give you credit for the food that you're using, so you'll be getting 6,000 gold per run instead of the 12,000 gold per run on Extreme that you do end up getting with your gold food active. So that's the first important number right there. Now let's break down everything else right here, because a huge chunk of the gold is actually from those SSR chests. And this is really just everything broken down. 2 million from the actual raw gold with the gold food, and then the SSR chests actually ended up being over 6 million gold. They end up selling for 45,000 gold each if you end up selling them to a village shop vendor for that 20% discount, so you can indeed get more than that 37,500 they list. Then the chalices, actually a lot of gold worth of chalices. It seems like this is a very generous farming routine when it comes to those 5 stars. So the 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and 2 stars all added up with their base vendor prices was just a bit shy of 2 million gold right there. And then also, I did end up getting a good amount of those 4-star books, which ended up adding up to about 750,000 gold. So all together, we're looking at approximately 10,650,000 gold. Might even be a little bit lower than what I actually got, because I generally tend to round numbers a bit down just to be on the safe side. But either way, you're looking at over 10.5 million gold, and this farming run took me about 4.5 hours. So if you break that down right there, you are looking at about 2.5 million gold per hour, which is really, really crazy. I know that I cannot quite get anywhere close to those numbers when it comes to book farming. I could definitely push well over a million gold, but almost 2.5 million gold from this farming routine is pretty darn crazy. Now, I wanted to get into some other important stuff, and that includes my team. But before I show you guys my team here, I did want to compare this more directly to book farming, because I think this is something that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and there are some important takeaways with the Lila farming compared to the book farming, and those are those numbers that I mentioned at the start of the video, and that is the amount of gold per hour, which we've already been able to tell is quite a bit higher than book farming. But the downside to that is the amount of stamina potions that you use. As you guys can see, almost 40 of them in under 5 hours is pretty darn crazy. So maybe if you guys are going absolutely ham on the Lost Vein half anniversary banner, you're going to have a lot of stamina potions stocked up. But if I were to just do this like 24 hours 7, for example, this would be eating about 200 stamina potions a day, and that's just unreasonable, that's unsustainable. Even big whales probably aren't going to be able to keep up at those levels, at least not to my knowledge anyway. That's where book farming is going to come in at the advantage right there. And I will say that I actually have some old numbers here from book farming, and I was able to gather the amount of gold per stamina potion as well, which is, I think, is an important number, especially to those of you guys that are free to play and don't have as much access to these stamina potions. You want to try to find ways to get as much gold from them as possible. And I will tell you guys that book farming is a little bit better when it comes to the amount of gold per stamina potion. It's not nearly as good in terms of gold per hour, but specifically gold per stamina potion, book farming is going to be the way to go. And you're looking at about 300,000 gold per stamina potion, which ends up being about 3,300 gold per stamina spent. Now, the Awakened Lila, on the other hand, is still pretty darn close. You're looking at about 270,000 gold per stamina potion, so it's only about 10% less efficient in terms of gold per stamina compared to book farming. So it's still really, really close. That's about 3,000 gold per stamina, and the fact that you're able to farm gold, I would say probably close to twice as fast in terms of gold per hour by doing the Awakened Lila. You know, considering it's very, very close to how efficient it is still, in my opinion, the best farming in the game. So it's really nice. I definitely want to take advantage of it, at least somewhat, before it goes away. You never have to do anything like I do in my videos to the absolute extreme. I know this is kind of my thing right here, but if you guys do have some skip tickets or some leftover stamina potions, it is definitely not a waste to go through and farm Awakened Lila on extreme. Now I want to show you guys my team here, because I was actually surprisingly able to get more runs per hour than I anticipated. Obviously, the Awakened Lila is going to be a bit more difficult than a lot of the routine content that we have in the game, like the boss battles, book farming, and so on and so forth. But surprisingly, this team was able to squeak out over 40 runs per hour. And I'll tell you a couple of the important things. First of all, there are 3 stages that are available to you, and out of these 3 stages, I think the best one to farm is going to be Easton in the bottom right there. Mono just seems like I had problems with Jericho because she was able to apply the poison and then the weak hit, and it just completely obliterated some of my team members sometimes. Just didn't really work out very well. Valenti, of course, just has a ton of resistance, so it just feels like it just takes forever for me to kill stuff, and it's really, really slow and sluggish. Sure, she doesn't end up, you know, doing anything crazy like one-shots, but it's just so slow that for farming efficiency, it didn't really seem worth it. And another big thing is, surprisingly, in the Valenti and in the Mono runs, you don't just end up facing a wave of 3 enemies. You also have to face 1 additional enemy as well. So very similar to the boss battles, right? You end up facing 3 monsters, and then when you kill one of them ends up being replaced. So there's 4 of them in total. And surprisingly for Easton, that actually is not the case. You only end up ever facing 3 enemies for Easton. So it's just 1 full wave, and once you end up killing all 3 of those enemies, that is it, and it is complete. Now, this team right here, it's actually, I've been really doing a lot of experimentation. I will say that I think the sub slot doesn't necessarily have to be Weinhardt at all. I could probably find somebody else that might be a bit more useful, but that's the least important part of this composition. I surprisingly found that even though Blue Lilia was not able to be used to give the increased pierce rate. Just having a standard pierce team with lots of pierce on their gear still does enough AoE damage, and because you are facing 3 enemies at once, you're always going to be in an AoE situation. You really just want to do as much nuke damage to multiple enemies at once and clear the waves in as few turns as possible. And I've been experimenting with some other units here and there, and it just doesn't feel like any other combination of units that I've tried out, at least up to this point, is able to consistently clear this in 2 to 3 turns. And that is the benchmark for this team. It is 2 turns a good amount of the time, 3 turns every other time. I don't think I see any 4-turn runs. It might be possible to find a team that is consistently able to do it every single time in 2 turns, but I still have not found it. And I know that this team right here is getting over 40 runs per hour. So I'll just show you guys a run here, maybe 2, depending on how it goes, just so you guys can see how this team works here. And even with the corrosion for Meliodas here, either way, just the amount of AoE damage that you have on these 3 units is no problem to chunk down this encounter pretty darn quickly. If Easton does end up using her ultimate, it does do a lot of damage, but if she does end up using her ultimate, I found that I'm always 1 turn away from killing her anyway, so I shouldn't ever have a problem with my team dying or anything like that. It's never been an issue. It seems really scary when it does happen, but I watched for, half an hour or so, just all the battles, making sure nothing really bad happened overnight, and it didn't seem like it ended up being an issue. So, depending on what cards the auto uses here, this might be a 2-turn clear, but it's looking like it's probably going to be 3. Not too sure yet. Depends how many AoEs we get here. So, what do we got? We got 1, we got 2. Okay, this is probably actually going to be a 2-turn clear here, so... Alright, there we go. And let's do one more run, just so you guys can see the consistency here. Might end up getting a run where I'm not quite able to get in that clean 2-turn run. So we'll do one more here, and then that'll give you an idea of the team that I'm using, which is able to get over those 40 runs per hour. But yeah, if you guys are farming this, it's only been about half a day since this was released, so I'm sure there's still plenty of more stuff that I'm going to figure out about this over the coming days and weeks. I'm sure I'll be able to optimize this team more in the future, maybe find a way to consistently get those 2-turn clears instead of having a couple of runs end up at 3 turns. And I'm sure there's still plenty of things to be found out about this, but I'm pretty happy with the 40 runs per hour already. Obviously, I am still using Pierce gear on my Pierce units. That's really important. Even though we don't have Lila in the team, you still want to go with Pierce because you're just going to get so much damage from those Pierce cards, given that they get triple the effect from them. And what are we looking like? This might end up being one of those 3-turn runs, which is nice, so I can kind of... Actually, it might not be, though. It might end up being another 2-turn run, depending if we get 3... Okay, this is probably going to be a 3-turn because we didn't get a Pierce card at the end. I don't think I'm going to be able to get her here. Okay, and actually you get to see the ultimate as well, which is nice. So it looks scary, but I've never run into a problem where it's caused any issues here. And I was able to farm overnight. No problems with the auto being interrupted, no wipes, none of that sort of stuff. And if we don't get that 2-turn kill, we always get that 3-turn kill right there. So I still find that AoE teams are the way to go for this, and it's really nice that you don't have that additional enemy that you have to deal with afterwards like you do for Mono and Valenti, which I feel like slows down the runs quite a bit. So anyway, this is all the information that I really have for you guys right now. Obviously, as time goes on, I might find out more about this. If you guys feel like you're using a better team that works better, you're able to get more runs in per hour, feel free to let me know in the comments for sure. And if there is a major update to what I'm doing, and I'm talking about it's got to be pretty big, I will put out an updated version of this in the future. But I don't want it to be too late, obviously, because this is a time-sensitive event. So we'll just kind of have to see as I experiment more with this in the future. But that's going to be about it for the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed, And if you did and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to toss a quick like as well. It really does mean more than you can imagine. So a huge thank you to all of you guys who decide to quickly do that. And more Gray Cross Global videos should be popping up on the screen right about now, or in the suggested videos to your right or below. Feel free to check them out. But if not, until next time, have a fantastic day, everyone. Take care. And this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.